So I know a lot of people are really looking forward to the new M2 MacBook Air. It is the cheapest way to get into Apple's new design language and their latest generation of Apple Silicon chips. But today I want to focus on what the MacBook Air has been for about 10 years now. Cheap. And $1,200, which is the base price of the M2 MacBook Air, may well be a pretty good deal, but it's not exactly cheap. This is cheap because I bought this MacBook Air for $100. And today I'm going to explain why this $100 MacBook is pretty much the best $100 anything that you can buy. So get subscribed, leave a like down below, and let's get into it. By the way, today's video is sponsored by iFixit for reasons that will become clear later on in the video. The ProTech Toolkit is my go-to for repairing pretty much anything, and you'll find this as well as resources, parts, and tools linked in the description below. So here it is, a $100 MacBook Air. It honestly doesn't look like anything special, and that's because it's not. There's about 50 trillion of these things out in the wild. Everyone and their uncle has owned a MacBook Air, and this generation, I think, is honestly the king. This generation MacBook Air was introduced in 2012 with the MagSafe 2 port, though it looks very similar to the 2010 and 2011 models that came before it. But if we count it as starting in 2012, this generation MacBook Air did not get replaced until 2018. That is a 6-year production run with nothing but minor internal spec bumps and changes to the CPU. That's crazy. And that gives it the longest continuous production run of any generation of MacBook. And it's easy to see why. This thing was incredibly popular because of its price point. But the MacBook Air wasn't always the cheap MacBook. It started at $1799 back in 2008, and by 2013, which is when this one is from, it was down to $999. The price tag where I think the MacBook Air really should be. Now, I actually have quite a bit of experience with this spec MacBook Air because when I started high school in 2013, the students were loaned these exact spec laptops with the 4 gigabytes of RAM, and I used it all the way through high school. I bought it and continued to use it into college. So I had about 6 years of experience using this from when it was brand new. And let me tell you, going back to it now, 9 years later, this thing does not feel like a 9-year-old $100 laptop. It feels exactly the same as when I got it brand new from my school in 2013. And what more can you want than that, honestly? I mean, I struggle to think of anything from 9 years ago that feels exactly the same now. Almost everything either gets beaten up and worn down or feels so slow that you can kind of tell. Now, this is not a fast laptop. It never was a fast laptop, even when it was brand new. But this thing honestly does everything you need it to do. And the key that unlocks that is that the MacBook Air since 2010 has been all flash. As long as you have fast flash storage, and in this case, specifically NVMe storage, you're good, you're done. That's basically all you need to get a usable experience with a laptop in 2022. It doesn't really matter that this thing in Cinebench R23 scores 1396. Don't want to sell it short. It's a good showing. You almost pulled 1400 there, little buddy. Good job. Now, is that score lower than the single core score of an M1 MacBook Air? Yes, but don't worry about that because who cares? It doesn't have to be fast in multi-core performance loads. If you buy this and think you're gonna do 4K video editing, you're delusional. That's not what it's for. So get out of here. We don't need Cinebench. What matters more than that is the general experience when using this for web browsing. And this generation of MacBook Air, particularly at this price point, is excellently equipped to do that. I mean, for one, you've got enough ports, right? You've got MagSafe. Nobody hates MagSafe. You've got 2 USB ports, Nobody hates USB ports. And you've got Thunderbolt 2, which you can adapt to other stuff if you need it. Great. You've got a great keyboard and a great trackpad. And you've got a display that is arguably better than what you would expect to find on a comparably priced unibody MacBook Pro, because the MacBook Air's screen is 1440 by 900 instead of 1280 by 800. So on a 13-inch display, it is noticeably sharper than a comparable unibody. And honestly, I think it's fine. It gets the job done. In fact, that's kind of the motto of this whole MacBook, right? It's a cheap, functional laptop that you can chuck in your bag and bring with you wherever you want to go. And actually, chucking in your bag is not just one of those tech YouTuber little remarks. These things are way more durable than you would think. I mentioned earlier that these things were my high school laptops, and as you might imagine, when you give out some MacBooks to 300 high schoolers, they're gonna beat these things up. I genuinely feel terrible for the 329 other MacBook Airs that weren't being taken care of by me when I went to high school, because they got absolutely manhandled. People would be throwing them and sitting on them and just like banging them down on a table. They'd get to class, they'd be like, haha, MacBook. It was utterly terrible. But you know what? These things held up. And what's more, the battery lasted. I used the thing for like 6 years every single day, charged it up every single day. I was putting multiple cycles per day on this thing. And the battery held up for 7 years. That is truly amazing. And what's more, these MacBooks are outrageously simple to work on. Unlike the Retina MacBook Pros, you can change a battery on this very, very easily. So easily, in fact, that I gotta show you. Let's try a little bit of an experiment. I'm gonna call this the iFixit One Take. I've got my ProTech toolkit, I've got the MacBook here, and I'm gonna show you just how easy it is to service one of these things. It's like kinda silly. So, no cuts, no edits, let's get into it. On the bottom, you've just got a couple of pentalobe screws. These things are pretty easy to get out of here, so let me just, hello? There it is. These are pretty proprietary. You're not gonna see pentalobe screws on a lot of things, but at the same time, it's fine. You got a ProTech toolkit, you're good to go. Doesn't really matter if it's proprietary if you can take them out. So how many are there of these? 10? Probably. I'm stalling for time because this is honestly the most time-consuming part of this whole process. It's crazy. You can basically completely tear down and reassemble one of these things in like 15 minutes. So, not too complicated there. Just a few screws left. Are you playing silly music, editor Luke? Come on, we talked about this. No silly music, please. Thank you very much. That's much better. Thank you. I appreciate that. Come on now. One more screw to go. Okay, so no clips on the bottom. Well, actually there is one clip on the bottom, but oh no! I'm missing the little thing that the clip goes into. Don't worry about that. That's fine. So here's what we're working with. There's not a whole lot. You've got a screw up here, a single screw to replace your SSD. That is honestly a really nice touch because it means that you actually don't need an Apple SSD to go in here. You can get normal NVMe SSDs with adapters, which I will have linked down below. So if you buy one like mine that is just a perfectly normal base model 128 gigabyte, it's super easy and super cheap to upgrade the storage. And honestly, that is pretty much all you could ask for. You're talking about a $100 laptop with upgradable storage that's also flash storage. Hello? It's pretty perfect. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws it looks like here on the battery. And unlike on a Retina MacBook Pro, these batteries are not glued in, which is fantastic because it means that you can unplug it like this and pull it right out. You see how fast that was? Boom, battery out. These things are a fantastic deal now that they are this astonishingly cheap. Even with 4 gigabytes of RAM, you can't go wrong with this. So to summarize, why should you buy a $100 MacBook Air? Well, honestly, it's harder to think of a reason why not to buy one. I mean, think of what you could do. It's a spare laptop. It's a laptop for your kids. It's a laptop for your freaking dog. It's a laptop for your old parents or grandparents. This thing can do anything for $100. It's kind of weird, right? You think that the more expensive and the more powerful a device is, the more versatile it is. But in the other direction, you can also have a more versatile laptop the cheaper it becomes, because you're not worried about like, oh, I gotta protect this expensive thing. You're just able to use it and do literally whatever you want with it. So should you buy a $100 MacBook Air? Absolutely. Should you buy one of the new M2 MacBook Airs? Well, we don't know yet because I got to review it, but seems like it's also going to be. Absolutely. If you can't wait to see that coverage, make sure to get subscribed, leave a like down below. Thanks to iFixit for sponsoring today's video, and I will have all sorts of parts, tools, and resources linked in the description. So, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.